So welcome to, as we get settled, diversifying and maximizing fundraising. And as you settle in, we love to use Menti, and so some folks got a head start. The question as our icebreaker question tonight is, what's your favorite place to visit as we're talking about travel? And we've heard Paris, so maybe that goes up there. But if you want to scan the QR code or type menti.com into your phone browser, and put in this code 4381-6237, you'll be able to respond. We have a few slides peppered into tonight's presentation. I love New York City, Hawaii, and Europe all rolled into one. That's amazing. And Leavenworth, it's probably getting close to tree lighting time at Leavenworth. California, Vancouver. So is this Vancouver, British Columbia, or Vancouver, Washington, or? Okay, all right, there you go. Oh, a beach, Europe, the first time, Vienna and Budapest, and friends at home. Lots of travel there. So we're going to go, that's us. I'm Angela. That's Linda. We look like our pictures on the slides.
We do.
Quality control. We're the right people, right place, right time.
That's good thing. Well, almost the right time.
All right. So another icebreaker sort of introduction conversation. We have name tags at the table for you. Ooh, you guys are good. So what type of organization do you represent tonight? We have a few choices up there. Lots of nonprofits in the room. All right, we will go on. Linda, you're coming up.
It's me?
That's you.
All right, all right. Well, we haven't made introductions yet around the room, right? Good. Well, before we begin, is it all right if we go around so I know who I'm talking with? Yeah. Because you wouldn't want me to talk on a topic that you have no idea what I'm going to be talking about. So I want to be sure it's relative to you. I suppose you know about me or know about me. My name is Linda K. Briggs. I'm the founder of the Briggs Group. Back in 2015 is when I started. And after about the first 6 months, I hired 3 contractors to make me better because they do things as experts better than I. So I have a graphic designer. I can't draw a stick man even with lines. I just can't do it. So I have a graphic designer. I have working with me a marketer. She was the VP of marketing of Multi-Care Health System, so a big outfit, for about 10 years. A wonderful writer. She always makes my stuff sound better, always. And then an administrative person who does analysis for feasibility studies that we do, and she's a terrific, put everything together and make it look good. And then I have a person, also a creative guy, who does recognition plaques and these for nonprofits that we run campaigns for. Lance Kagi from Rotator in Tacoma. And then me. I've been in nonprofit. I was in for-profit work for about 20 years. And I was pretty good at it. I was a banker. I loved it. It was about people and money. And I didn't even realize it at the time. I just loved talking about money, and I just loved talking to people. So it worked out pretty well. And then I had a 10-pound baby boy with red hair, and I didn't want to do that anymore. I just needed more purpose in my life. Oftentimes when people go to nonprofit, that's why they go. They're seeking for a bigger purpose or an expanded purpose. Matter of fact, many women in their 40s, when I was going into nonprofit, they were my colleagues. They were my sisters who all wanted more meaning, rather than making the stockbroker or the stockholder more rich. So we all kind of made this shift, a bit of us, in those days. So my first experience was at United Way of Pierce County, where Cindy was a loan executive. I worked there for about 7 years, and I was in the marketing department. That was my background, retail, bank, and finance. And I love numbers. I just kind of a silly thing, but I just love them. I love the story they tell. And so the president of United Way said, I think we're going to put you into campaign department because I think you're a fundraiser. And I said, oh, thanks, but I'm really a marketing person because it really isn't a choice. I'm moving you there, and because I didn't want to lose my job, I moved and found that I loved it. It was money, it was people, it was confidentiality, it was trust, it was impact. It still is for me. I'm excited about it today as I was the day I moved over to that job. And I raised a lot of money in beside myself, in case of myself. And so that went really well for about 7 years. And I really had a good time, but I was growing restless. And an offer came, kind of a tap on the shoulder that said, you should think bigger. And so the VP of Philanthropy of Multi-Care came to see me, and she managed the adult Foundation, which raised money for Tacoma General and Allen Moore Hospitals and about 100 clinics, and the Mary Bridge Children's Hospital. Well, I thought, oh, I am in heaven now. I'm going to be raising money for a children's hospital. Does it get better than that? You hardly have to say anything and someone's going to write a check. I mean, how easy can that be? So during the interview, we interviewed and she said, well, you probably think I'm hiring for both. And you probably think you want to go to the Children's Foundation. I'm like, oh, it's not looking good for me right now. And she said, you know, anybody can do that. I need someone that has a lot more to go to the adult side. Well, I believed her, but I was there for 10 years and I loved it. There's nothing, I really like old people. I like younger people and older people. Not that I don't like the in-between, but I mean, I love younger people because there's just no pretense. And kind of when you get older, there's no pretense. And if there is, you just don't talk to them. But there's just a lot of story with people older. So that was my gig for about 10 years. And then all of a sudden the management changed. It wasn't something I wanted to do anymore. And I'm one of those people that doesn't gossip or talk about people. They just leave. They don't need to badmouth anybody. And so somebody hired me to be a consultant. I didn't know any better. And that was 10 years ago. So we have these contractors, and I've worked on municipality campaigns, capital campaigns, feasibility studies of all sizes. And I'm just loving it. Just loving it. And so Angela and I became partners, and she just farms me out wherever she needs me to go in between my regular clients. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm at this table, trying to help you through just experiences that I've had. What can help you? And I'm one of those real people, so I'm going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly with some of the things in fundraising, because there is all of those. And we'll talk about it. So before I do that, before we talk about tonight's topic, and we have a lot to talk about. Out of the three, this might be my favorite. So I'm glad you're here for the third one. So you're my favorite one. So what I want to do is I just want to know the organization that you work for and what you do there and how long, if at all, you have stewarded a donor. That's what I want to know tonight, because we're going to talk a lot about that. A lot about stewarding donors. So, Jen. Okay.
So, my name is Jennifer. I own an adult family home. I've owned it for like a year.
Okay.
Never thought of donors.
Okay. No donors yet.
Yeah.
Yet.
But I'm trying to focus on some different, like like a facility for tracheostomies, and that's why I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, we'll see if we can't find you some donors somehow.
All right. Yeah.
Nice to have you. Thanks for coming.
All right. Thank you.
And Janine.
Hi, yeah, I'm Janine, and I've been kind of helping a lot of different organizations against child trafficking, Concern United Birth Parents, Adoption Truth and Transparency, and I like to help with fundraising somewhat. I don't enjoy it, I guess, but I like. I just like helping, I guess.
Wonderful.
And I haven't ever stewarded
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, that's a really good reason to be here. Yeah, nice to see you again. I know you've been here before. Lori, I can tell you about Lori. No, you go ahead.
My name is Lori. I'm the executive director of Audiobook Ministries, and I've been there for 2.5 years. What do you mean by stewarding a donor?
What do you think it means? In your definition, not mine.
Well, there was one donor that I really wanted when I first took over the job. My dad had built this relationship, went out and met the guy out in Minnesota, and the guy said, if I send you all these cassette tapes and you digitize them, when I die, you get the proceeds to my house. Well, in between my dad's stay, being the executive director, and me, there was a gap, and that connection was lost. So I made with all my power to find this guy again, and he died about 6 months after I took over, and we got the proceeds to his house.
Fabulous.
So that was 2 years ago.
I mean that in a lovely way, the man passed, but I mean it's...
He was 98 years old.
Okay, so a life well lived. So you had the experience with that one particular donor that sticks in mind.
But I've been raising for 2 years.
Okay, yeah, so I'd say 2 years you've had donor relationships, okay.
So I'm Mimi. I'm probably involved with 4 to 6 different nonprofits, not in any official manner, maybe board board member.
Yeah.
And haven't really done any stewardship of donors,
Okay.
other than, figuring out who to invite to fundraisers. And
Yeah,
I don't want to do that anymore. I want to
Yeah.
hit the bigger fish.
Okay, great. Nice to have you back, Mimi.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I am the grant writer for Technology Access Foundation. Although our physical headquarters are in Seattle, we have been working with students and educators here in Federal Way Public Schools for 16, 17 years at this point. And so much of our work is centered in this community. Our mailing address is up in Seattle. And so I've been in the grant writing position for 2 years. Prior to that, I was actually working at Taft-Etzl-Holly, our co-managed school here, and as the college and career readiness specialist. And I did that for 6 years. So I've been in Taft for a long time, but it's just 2 years that I've been in grants and in development. And I inherited a steward list from my predecessor. So I do have colleagues who do most of the individual stewardship, but I steward sort of previous grantors,
So your donors are grant funders,
our funders, yeah.
and you steward them
Yeah.
because they're one person. They might represent a foundation.
Sometimes, and sometimes it's more of the foundation itself. There's
yeah.
there might be a rotating cast of characters, but yeah.
Good. Excellent. Glad you're here tonight, too.
My name is John, and I'm the president of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. I've been the president for 1 year. My background is 2.5 years with the society. I retired from Boeing after 36.5 years
Lightweight.
with them, and so I've been retired for 10 years. So I don't have any experience in grant writing.
Okay.
That's why I attended the sessions at the beginning.
This is your third one, John. I'm happy to see you here.
Correct. And fundraising is all new to me.
Okay.
I'm trying to think.
So no real donor stewardship then?
No donor
Okay.
stewardship. We had one individual that was knowledgeable on grant writing, and he passed away at the end of September.
Okay.
So the answer is we're
You're in the wind working, yeah. Okay.
we're drifting in the wind. Yes.
I bet you're glad you're not working for Boeing right now to go through all that trouble the last couple months. I'm glad it's fixed, though. That's a good thing.
Last 10 years.
Yeah, last 10 years, right, yeah. Nice to have you again with us, John. Cindy again? Yeah.
Hi, so I'm representing with these other two people here, the Arts Foundation Federal Way. I've also been on the board and the treasurer of several other nonprofits. And as far as donor stewardship, so again, we have a list of people that regularly give every year, and I guess when you call them up and ask for money, that's the stewardship. I haven't really, done a lot of relationships with them individually a couple times, but there are some regulars. I do have a group that come to my table when we have a fundraiser. So, a bunch of people that come to that every year. Or so.
After tonight, your definition and understanding might be expanded just a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to that, yeah. Although there's a lot of fundraisers in the world that think stewardship is asking for money, but in fact it's not. But it's a little bit of it.
And I'm Alan Smith, and I'm
Welcome
with.
back, Alan.
Thank you. Organization,
Right.
and
Arts Foundation.
I'm looking for the definition of stewardship because I don't think I do it.
Yay! You know how exciting that is that you actually want to learn something I know and have experience with? I'm just so happy. If you said, oh, I know about stewardship, I'd be very sad. So thanks for being here.
My name is Jean Burbage, and I have been involved with a number of different nonprofit organizations and have had what I might call mild experiences,
Mild.
smaller ones, with the previous groups, but with the Arts Foundation Federal Way, which, by the way, is a new name for our organization.
What was the old name?
It was the Federal Way Performing Arts Foundation.
Okay.
And we wanted to broaden our name
So
so
now
that
you
it was
arts
not only performing arts, but other
All
arts as
yeah.
well, and to simplify it in a way too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking forward to this idea, the concept, being expanded for us as well, the stewardship. But I have found over the number of years with this group, which has existed for about 10 years now, and it's from its tiny beginning, I have found that I'm following up with several people or couples more than others, and I guess I would say that would be developing into a form of stewardship.
Absolutely. Following up and stewardship, same.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll just figure out some ways we can do that more. Well, nice for you to return. She's got the mic right there. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me. I know some of you from the first, second, and third time, but there's new people here, and so we want everyone to know what wonderful colleagues they have in Federal Way. That's the beauty of it all, right? Okay, so back to this first slide. This is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about diversifying fundraising. And the 4 elements in my mind when you're diversifying are these 4. And we're going to talk about each 4 of them tonight. One of them is creating your own pyramid, and we mean you're going to create your own. So we're going to talk about what I think one looks like, and then what I think you might do. We're going to talk about identifying, assess, and develop your own donor base, because they're all different. There are no donor bases that are alike. The Arts Foundation is different than audiobooks. They look very different by the number of people, by the gift size, for all the foundations or the nonprofits that you two work for, right? So it just depends, and it depends on how many staff you have working. That really dictates what a donor base looks like, and we're going to talk about that because you have to have a quality donor base in order to steward donors, and so it's an element we're going to talk about. Then we're going to talk about moves management, this handout, this gorgeous thing. We're going to talk about one of my favorite things. We're going to explain why that works, and that can work in any organization. You're going to love it. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is kind of a fun exercise at the end of the evening, words that count. And I promise you're going to giggle. I just promise you. And every Thursday should be giggling of some sort. So I'm excited to have you here. All right, so let's look at the first one. And you have the printout as well as the... Yep. And then we also have... Oh, you have another...
So before we get to the pyramid,
right,
and we talked about stewardship. So has anybody been involved in a capital campaign before? And Linda Kay, how would you define a capital campaign?
I would say it could be like a campaign anyway. Capital campaign is when you raise money to build something. That's usually what it's for. A building or an attachment or an ADU to a church or wherever you're going to do. But if you've worked on an endowment campaign, include that with it. So maybe not something to build, but something to invest and infest funds into your organization. So either one of those, a capital campaign or an endowment campaign.
Okay, we got a yes, 2 no's. Ooh, somebody's excited. Linda Kay, you've inspired. They want to do one in the future.
Oh, yeah. Well, I am so glad
I love that.
There.
That's brave.
Okay. Well, good. So
Awesome.
again, we're talking to the right people in the room, which is fabulous. Okay, so this sample that you have in front of you, right? Because you have let's talk about this one. Now, I'm going to kind of break down this pyramid for you. When anybody raises money, they would be smart to have a plan, right? Some people don't have all plans, but this plan of a pyramid is very, very popular. It is a best practice in fundraising. And what you're basically doing is dividing your donor base into categories and giving them the funds that you expect to raise. So let me start with that. Over on the left-hand side of the street sheet, you will see that at the top it says focus in the silent phase, and then the bottom is focus in the public phase. I want you to remember that in a minute. So if we start at the top, and the right side is what your donor base categories are, and on the left side is the dollar amounts you hope to raise. Now, this sample I'm giving you is a $5 million goal giving pyramid that I did last 2 years for Goodwill of Pierce County and Kitsap County. They have 13 counties I think they work with, all but King County. So this was a $5 million goal, and we broke it down to the board and executive team, right? That's the board of directors. And we all know in campaign raising that we want the board and the executive team of the organization to give 100% before you really go forward to ask anybody else for a campaign. Why? Because a donor will say to you, well, is your board on board? Is your executive leadership given? So one of the best practices of fundraising is that 100% giving by the board of directors, by any committee that you have on the board, like the fundraising committee, for example, and the executive team. And by the way, the consultant's usually in here too. I've never run a campaign where I have not given money. It's just what I have to do, right? Morally, I have to do it. It's in my DNA. What kind of donor type is that for those that were here 1, 2, and 3? Do you remember? Altruism. It's exactly right. Oh, I'm so proud of you right now. Yes, because some of us giving is a type of giving that we give no matter what the cause, right? So this is usually where your consultant gives, your board, and your executive team. Notice that we are in the silent phase. This is before you ever go external. So the people closest to you, you ask first when you're told nobody else. You have a brochure, maybe you have, like we talked last week, you have talking points and asking people for gifts, but you're not telling the world yet you have a campaign. If you go down another step, individuals with lifetime giving. Now for Goodwill, it was $40,000 or more. It might be different for your organization. It might be anybody that's given $10,000 of their lifetime giving. That's a really important, am I good there? Yeah, okay. You hear me all right? Yeah, okay. I'm looking at the maestro here just to be sure. He says yes. So individuals with lifetime giving, the reason I'm giving you this sample is because it's important for you to determine who are your longest term givers, right? And sometimes it has nothing to do with the dollar amount. For example, at Multicare, when I came on board, I was calling all the people that had given the most and the longest to me, and I was brand new. They'd never really had anybody that was a fundraiser. The person before me, not their fault, this is what they were told to do, really just kissed babies and shook hands. They were just reactive. You have money, you want to give it to me, thank you very much. We weren't proactive at the hospital at that time. So actually making calls to donors, oh no, was just new. That's the first time. So I called this woman that had been giving for like 10 years at $100 a year. And so in my mind, I thought, this woman must love Tacoma General, but why is it only $100 a year? So I called her. She was a retired University of Washington chef. She was in charge of the cafeteria for 30 years. So I knew there was some capacity there, right? So I called her and she said, what was your name again? And I just said it a minute before. I said, my name is Linda K. Briggs, and I'm working here at Multicare Health Foundation, where you've been giving. And she said, when did you start? Really gruff. I said, oh, ma'am, I started last week. And she said, yeah, when you're there 6 months, you give me a call. And I thought, oh, you met your match, honey. I am going to be calling you. So I set my calendar for 6 months, and I called again. And she goes, so I introduced myself. She goes, oh, you made it 6 months. I said, yes, ma'am, I did. All right, I'll have lunch with you. We became the bestest of friends. She gave me $10,000 every year I was there. Every year. So someone saved her. Actually, someone saved her mother. And she started giving $25, $50, $75, $100. And then someone asked her. So when we define lifetime giving, be careful that you're not too prejudiced on the dollar amount. It could be the length of time that is the critical piece. And they've just never been asked. And life happens and they give to other things or their family or they've had medical issues. Don't be afraid if the dollar amount is smaller but the tenure of giving is longer. That's really key, I would say. Not that large dollar amounts aren't good too. You kind of have to put them together. So again, the individuals, so these are the highest donors, highest level donors in your mind, are still in the silent phase. So you're getting all the people closest to you when you start a campaign of any kind. Next, for Goodwill, it was the top corporate partners. So a lot of times you'll have individual donors. Anybody have any corporate partners? Probably and probably the Arts Foundation has some, right? Yeah. So you want to get the ones that have been giving over and over and over. I don't know if you have any because you don't really have events. Okay, that works. That absolutely counts. So churches would be in here, because those are the closest to you, right? And they've been giving to you and supporting you for a long time. So they're on the highest part of the pyramid. And usually those top 3 categories, again, they change with each organization. Those top 3 are all in the silent phase. The bottom happens when you tell the world you're raising money, why you're raising money, and in your message of that campaign is this. And look who's already given to us. Look at these beautiful people, the board of directors, the committees, the executive director, the board of directors, the fundraising committee, and our top donors over the last 10 years. Look at that, and the donor says, oh, prospective donor says, that's good. If you don't have it, and it doesn't matter, well, it does matter, but it doesn't really matter how much they give. You want them to make the goal that you've set is the matter that they participate. And you know our level of board members, some have great capacity, some don't. So it can be differing amounts, it just has to be participation. Because me as a prospective donor, you hear this often, and sometimes people won't admit to telling you, they'll say, well, who else is given? Who else is in? That is how a donor thinks. So you want to be able to say, oh, on a board, the committees, my executive team, all that. Normally the rule when you go from the silent phase to the public phase is normally anywhere between 30 and 50% of your goal. Now that can change. For example, today, one of my customers, or one of my clients, and she just loves me to tell this story, is Habitat for Humanity. They've never had a campaign in their 40-something years. They've never had to. They just build a house, people support it. They ask for money, but they've never had a campaign. And they have one right now because they're renovating 84 homes. And they needed capital to renovate those and then sell them. So the thing important to them, where the goal is first it was going to be 9 million, but some things came in beforehand, so it was only 7 million. We are at 70% of the goal, and we've just been campaigning for 1 year. And we haven't told the public. So we're going to tell the public in March at their annual lunch where 600 people come. That's a very different case, but it works for them, right? So you have to know in your organization, when I have a campaign, when am I ready to tell the world, where am I? It could be 70%. It could be anywhere between 30 and 70. But you don't do it too soon because you have these top 3 tiers to cement, to close. All right? Okay. So individual donors comes next. And again, you'll have numbers of people, and then maybe you have an average gift size, and you go, I think I can raise 1.2. I'll tell you a little secret. The individual donors is normally the number you plug in. It's the one you can't quite get a number to, but you have to reach 5 million, and all these others seem right, and you think, I don't know how much I'm going to raise with individual people. I just don't know. Well, you're going to know when you do all of these, and that number's got to balance to 5 million. I would not be the first fundraiser that tells you that. Sometimes you have to plug it in for what you need. Even if you think, I don't know if I can do it, that's okay. That's all right. That's what a campaign's all about. And then for that example, this organization set aside government grants. So that's Sarah's stuff. So government grants might be something different than, and usually are, community grants and family foundations. So that's a part where we did 2 different ones in that 2.5 million, right? Does everybody know what that means, government grants versus community and family foundations? If you don't, it's okay, but do you know what that is? So right, one is the federal government, one are the private family foundations and community grants. They're different. They're different donors. They think different. They act different. It's not just one form that fits all. It's like having just individual donors that are different. And then in Goodwill's case, and this might be yours too, there are sponsors and vendors. So if you have an event once a year, it's those sponsors and that's all they do. You can go to them during a campaign and say, hey, something's different. We love that you support us at our annual lunch, and it's wonderful, but we're having this campaign and we really need you. Most sponsors and vendors will help you, right? Vendors like your business. You have a relationship with them. Someone in your organization does, whether it's you or not, I don't know. But your vendors are your partners in your everyday business. So they would want to know if you're having a campaign or you want to grow. Don't be afraid to ask them. You know, that's the number 1 rule, right? The only reason people don't give is because we don't ask them. Like my friend at the UW chef, the reason she didn't give more is because nobody asked her to. She had affinity, she had capacity, but there was no relationship with anybody. So she just like she did Easter seals or how she did audiobooks. It's just, she just did it kind of on robotic, right? Not on any proactive. Okay, so this is kind of the pyramid that you can create for yourself, again, depending on your organization, the number of donors, right? So this looks like a pretty verbose group of donors. It's really not. They changed leadership 6-7 years ago, and they let some donors go and slip away, and they didn't take care of them. And so it was really, really tough for them. The CEO were calling people and saying, I know you haven't heard anybody from somebody in 5 years. And I apologize. It was out of her mouth every day apologizing. But these people still have goodwill, passion in their heart. And so we could cultivate them. And we'll talk about what that means in black and white in a minute. So don't let this be intimidating to you. It's just broken down. It can be any number of people. And maybe you want to raise $2 million or $1 million. It can still be broken down depending on the donor, or $500,000. It can be any number based on your donor base, your average gift size, the history of resource development in your organization, right? So that happens too. Any questions on the pyramid before we move on?
This was a capital campaign, but if you're going to do it for just your operating programs.
It actually was an endowment campaign. And no, it was an endowment. I never changed the name on this. It was an endowment first in the vision and the dream, but we did a feasibility study and the donor said, I'm not giving you any endowment money. No. So she raised money for a digital literacy campaign, which paid for teachers and computers for kids and seniors who needed to learn how to access computers and digital literacy. It was literally a digital literacy campaign, and everybody wanted to help because they know that you can't work unless you have digital literacy, no matter how old you are. And if you're very old and you didn't have any computer or children to help you or grandchildren to help you, you're kind of out of luck. Somebody's got to teach you. We didn't grow up with this stuff. And so there's a lot of senior literacy that was taught. There were teachers that were hired to do it, and there were laptops given. So it was kind of a three-pronger for this digital literacy, and donors ate it up. Ate it up.
But could you do this for just like your yearly operational budget, or that's totally different?
It is totally different because people don't always give to fill your checkbook.
Right.
That's not as compelling as digital literacy. Does that mean
rent for a year?
Okay, well, so you can create your own focus for a campaign, but it can't be for operations. It's got to be something you want to do. Let's say that you want to do professional development for 5 of your people. You know that you have to go to the next step to be certified to do something or whether. Or they have to travel to conferences, professional development. And you are on a shoestring budget. You could create a campaign, a small one, that says taking it to the next level. And then talk about what that means and what that could mean to the business you're in. That would be more compelling to me than you just saying something like, well, we just need more money in our reserves. Or I want to feel better that I have some reserves, if you don't mind. People are not compelled to help with that, right? So you can be creative and you can call it anything. If you can just think about you as a donor, what would be compelling? Digital literacy was compelling to those donors. The performing arts, right? Or the Arts Foundation. It could be kids need access. So maybe it's $1 million for a summer program, or $1 million for 2 summers or 3 summers. I don't know. But something that the organization wants done that they can't afford to do, turn it into a compelling donor reason. We want to take care of the vulnerable. I'm trying to find a path to take vulnerability out of their life, right? So you can call it what you want as you raise money, as long as it's compelling. And nobody needs, there's the ROI donor, right? We're all about return on investment. They can breadcrumb to where's that money really going? And you can say to yourself, it is going to there because we can't afford it. Goodwill had reserves, and Goodwill could not afford a $5 million investment to get us where they needed to go. And so donors bought off on that. And she said, I wished in the years past when I wasn't here, that the previous president would have put more money in for digital, but that didn't happen. There were other things she had to do. No fault, no shame. But now we have to do it. And the donor said, okay. So the same. You find it compelling for you, and you test that case. Your friends, your good friends will tell you, like, that is nowhere near compelling. Or they'll say, oh, you got something there. But try to be compelling, right? You can't just call it a campaign. Maybe, did you have a question?
No.
No? Okay. All right, I'm going to move on from here then. No other questions? Okay. Well, let's talk about the second part of diversifying, and that is identify, assess, and develop your donor base. We talked about it a little already, but I'm going to give you the nuts and bolts here. A best practicing tool for you is to create or to have software that lists your donor base. Do not go cheap. I know you want to because of the dollar amount, but Excel spreadsheets that cover donors is no longer the way to go, even though you're tempted. A lot of us have Excel spreadsheets for that reason. But truly, if you want, and I'm going to show you how you do that, if you want to sustain donors, you want to do it in the tool, God bless you, the tool that is designed to walk a donor through a donor's life. It has dates and reasons and so much more than you could ever put on an Excel spreadsheet. So if you're going to invest in something in your organization, again, it could be a campaign that says, we need a new donor. I mean, an HVAC unit is not exciting. I'm just telling you right now. But investing in a donor base software to collect all your donors, to help your donors, more exciting, right? You can call it whatever you want to. This is really the only way that you can grow and steward your donors, because it keeps a record of what you've done. So you don't get confused. Like, did I call them first quarter? Looking back on my calendar, I can't remember if I called them. I forgot to write it down. This is where you follow them, where you follow them and you tell them what you did. So you just have to kind of put your arm up and say, I swear, Linda Kay, I will not use Excel spreadsheets. I won't do it. I tell you, I won't do it.
That's all I have, and I have 0 phone numbers of 100 donors.
Yeah.
0. So it's all writing letters.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? And you could look for, there's a whole bunch on the market, right? There's a whole bunch of ones on the market. Boomerang, I like Boomerang. It's a good one. I don't get any money for saying I like it. I just like it. A lot of my clients use it. A lot are not good, and I'm not going to say their names. But I will tell you that Boomerang's a good one. But there are software systems that you can get at a smaller dollar amount if your donor base is low. And then it can grow with you, right? So you have to do some research. And maybe if you know you're going to grow the organization, you can ask a few investors to invest in just the software, right? That's also a possibility. Not a great big campaign, but maybe it's a campaign of $200,000 just to last you for 2 years, whatever you might need with that software. Think of it that way. Think of it as an investment for the organization. And if someone in the arts, right, says, well, what's that for? Well, because we want to hold on to every single piece of information that a subscriber tells us. We want to be able to be accurate with them and not miss anything. We want to share everything with them. If you make it come from the donor's perspective, then your investor will be more involved and more engaged. Right? It's not what I need to run my organization. It's what I would like to offer my donors. And could you help me do that? Right? So those closest to you, that's what you got to do first, identify. And we talked a little bit about that before. Who are your closest to? Your board, your executive staff, your fundraising committees. These are the closest to you. These ought to be the people not only that you first go to for a campaign, but they ought to know it as well as you do. They ought to know it as well as you do, what the funding needs are, where you are on it. In a generative kind of thinking way, they should be sharing some vision with you, or you should be sharing vision with them. This is kind of a two-way road. There's also in a donor base previous donors, and that means they gave at one time and now they don't. But guess what? They had a lot of passion for you because they gave at one point and something's happened in between. So your job as a fundraiser in this role is to find out what happened. Whatever it is, apologize and move forward. A fundraiser cannot be afraid to apologize. Because what a donor's perception is, it has no bearing. If you agree with it, you think it's wrong, you think they're crazy, it doesn't matter. What matters is they were offended somehow and didn't give to you again. And your job is to make amends. Make amends and move forward. Why? Because they have affinity and they have capacity. They just don't have a relationship. And you're that cement, right? You're the cement that can bring that donor back. So previous donors, and you've heard this about retail, right? It's a lot harder to get a new customer a new one than retain one that left you. That's right. And you got to spend your money doing that. Lapsed donors, these are people who gave, and don't anymore. They lapsed for a year, they lapsed for 6 months, or they lapsed for 3 years, not more than that usually. And I'll tell you that every organization I have ever consulted with has these. Because what happens is you're going through something and you're like, I love you, John. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being our donor. And then time goes away and you haven't heard from John. I don't know, he's flying back and forth to Palm Springs and here. He hasn't given to you for a while. He's just kind of lapsed. And so what you need to do is to reactivate that relationship. You need to begin to steward and cultivate that relationship again. I'll tell you what happens is we get so busy with the Tom, Dick, and Marys that we forget about John. But John had passion again for you at one time. And so what do? We apologize to John. We tell him an update, what's going on. We do not ask him for money. We just cultivate the relationship again. Again, we're going to talk about moves management and how that is a no-no. Sarah, did you have a point?
Oh, I was just trying to distinguish between previous donors and lapsed donors, and it's really about intent.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Same first step with all of them.
That's right. That's exactly right. But if
Diagnose what happened.
That's right. If you're a lapsed donor, you are a more recent donor than a previous donor. Lapsed donors are usually within a year or two that were giving you pretty much on a regular basis usually. And then all of a sudden, they stopped.
And it may not be anything to do with you. It might be
Could be, but nobody called them, right? Could be. Oftentimes, a lapsed donor is a board of directors. They go off the board. You've kind of said, sayonara, good luck to you. And all of a sudden, you don't send them a Christmas card or a Thanksgiving card or a Hanukkah card, or you just don't. You're busy, saving the world, and your hair's on fire in your organization. You don't have time for that stuff. But every organization I've worked with, when I come in, I say, and what have we done with the previous board of directors? And their face turns red. I go, do not be embarrassed. Every organization does this. You just got to focus on fixing that, right? Be that person that doesn't let anybody go once they've fallen for you. Because it's really hard to get new people to fall for you, right? So you want to keep as many as you can. As many as you can.
We had a church that stopped. I was like, they give every month. So it's like, what? So I checked in and I was like, oh, we have a new bookkeeper. That's all it was. And so they caught up for the last 3 months.
Yay.
But I was like, I know that they committed to it every month,
That's right.
It's just a bookkeeper.
Yep. And what happens is we get so busy we don't notice or we don't call. And it's not because we have malice intent. It's not because we're, not paying attention. It's that we're so busy doing other stuff, right? But this is why it's on this sheet, because it's really important. And imagine you yourself as a donor. You're being treated nicely, they're calling you once in a while, they're talking to you, all of a sudden they just stop. Like, well, they don't even need my money. Because there are 3 or 4 things people are talking to me all the time about. Taking me to coffee, inviting me to events. I'm going to events. You're not even calling me. You see how that is with the donor? The donor is like, well, I'm old news. They don't need my money. I never gave them a lot of money, but apparently they don't need any at all. You hear donors say this. And it's true also with legacy giving. I have a friend, Joyce is her name. She was my donor for 10 years at Multicare, and she doesn't give me money now unless she says, are you working on something you need? I might ask her that, but not usually. She's at 90. She'll be 91 in November. And when I was with her as her account person, she had 3 people on her will that she would leave money for. 3 nonprofits. I was one of them, and there were 2 more. One of the 2 never got in touch with her once she filled out the legacy form. And guess what? She's changed her will. And now that number 1 is out and doesn't even know. Doesn't even know. So with legacy donors, it's the same, right? If you don't pay attention to donors, lapsed or previous, then that's on you. Then that's on you. So take the time to take a look at your books or your donor base, however you do it, and say, think of it as a crossword puzzle. What would happen to Joe? Joe gave in 2022, 23, then once back in 15. What happened to him? You're kind of an Inspector Clouseau. What happened? And then find out, and then call, and then call. Referrals, that's worth the effort, right? If somebody says, hey, I want you to call so-and-so, how fast can you pick up the phone, right? That's a big donor-based plus. That's like waffles with whipped cream on top. You got to get that right away, right away. Event attendees, non-donors. You remember on the 7 donor types, these are my favorite. We have to remember with event donors, that it's very important to follow up with them in between the events. It's not just once a year, right? Maybe once a quarter between the events. They don't want to talk to you long. They just want to know that you look so fabulous during the event last year. I remember the shoes, the dress. I remember who you sat with. Wasn't that just a great time? And they're like, yes, it was. And then you raised your paddle, and it was so exciting. I know, and that, it was just so fun. Is it going to be fun this year? Is there anything you can tell me about it? I go, well, we got a date going. Really, what's a date? Right? This is the kind of stewardship you do to an event donor to keep them. So there's stewardship with the donor base, even though you don't see them but once a year, or maybe twice a year. Questions about a donor base before we go? Good? You good?
So non-donors that doesn't give,
So sometimes at an event attendee is a non-donor. They didn't raise their paddle. And
we have several of those, and we're like, gosh, you just ate and drank our food and beverages, and you didn't give anything.
no, and we probably don't say that to them again, but even though our inside voice would like to say it to them. But you call them, you steward them. You call up and say, I realized you came last year. I just want to thank you again. And you'll never believe it, but we're talking about a date this year. We've run down to 2 dates. What do you think's the best date? I mean, engage them. And they're going to think, oh, I guess they care about me even though I didn't give to them. Huh? And this is how it works. And then they call their friend, well, I know you came with Susie. Oh, Susie is traveling this year, but maybe I could help do a table, right? This is how it begins. So you don't want to forget the non-donor at an event, right? Many a non-donor have become a donor after the event, depending on how you treat them, right? Or if you're really good friends with the people that put them at the table, then they help you cultivate that relationship. Like, do you want to have coffee with Janine? I know she didn't give at the event, but I think she has capacity, and I think we could help her. Absolutely, Janine, I'm so glad you thought about it. Let's have coffee, right? That's how that happens. So you never want to take for granted. If they spent money and looked pretty and sat at a table with someone that you know is an event donor, don't let them go. Don't let them go. That's a lot of work for you, but it's worth it. There are, we're swirling around after an event. It is a lot of work before the event to get everybody there. And then it's a lot of work after the event, but that's the event. That's the ROI donor that really pays off. Either just housing the table or helping you later with non-donors or people at their table. And they're already thinking about, well, who's going to come next year? Okay, I got my table already. Cindy, I think I've got everybody but this other couple, but I'm working on them. I might even have 2 tables this year, right? If you cultivate and steward donors like that, this is how they are, because they have a purpose. This is what they love. And they already love your cause, your organization. So, okay. Next is identify, assess, and develop your donor base. Right there with me. Little angel right here. She just flips the... This is really easy and quick, and it seems, my friends, very simple, but there's detail in the simplicity of it. And let me share that with you. The things that you need to assess with a donor when you're developing a donor base too are 3 things right here. Affinity, capacity, and relationship. It is that easy. If you are thinking of a relationship you want to start with the donor or a gift approach, any of those things, you have to be sure of these 3 things. A sustainable donor or a first-time donor. And that is affinity. So we know what that means. It means somebody that really loves your cause. They have a passion for what you're doing. It affects their heart. They have an interest, even more than just casual interest. They have an affinity for it. They have a lot, not as much as you maybe, but they're beginning to feel. They're beginning to feel for your organization. Capacity, we know what that means. Doesn't mean it's $1 million capacity. It could be $5,000. It could be 1,000. It could be 500, right? And a capacity to give.
How do you gauge that?
Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
Hang in there. I'm going to tell you in a minute. And then there's the relationship. And this is like the three-legged stool, or how I like to say it. The relationship is the cement between the affinity and the capacity. Now, here's an example. Who do we know in our world, current pop culture, who has affinity? That maybe lives in the Northwest? Who would that be? Would you say?
Gates.
Gates, exactly. So if we went to Mr. Gates, and I have heard this in boardrooms, why don't we just go to Mr. Gates and see if he'll give us some money for the foundation, for the Arts Foundation, because, you know, his whole family loved music. There isn't any reason why he shouldn't give us money. But in fact, Mr. Gates doesn't like it at all. His mother made him go, and he doesn't care for it at all. And by the way, nobody in your organization has a relationship with Mr. Gates. What do you think the odds are Mr. Gates is going to give you money? 0. But you hear about that all the time, that people do that. That's a waste of time, right? Okay, so he doesn't have an affinity, but he has capacity, so that doesn't work, and there's no relationship, so that doesn't work either. Here's one of my favorites, affinity. So you have a volunteer who is jumping up and down about how wonderful this audiobook organization is. Everybody she tells everybody. Every church she goes to, she's church shopping right now, so every church she goes to, she tells people, do you know, she's even got your business card, and she hands it out to people. It's just wonderful, and you think, I want to get close to her, but you find out that she's a wonderful volunteer, but has no capacity at all. And you like her, so you got relationship, but she's told you she barely makes ends meet. She has no money to put in her savings account. She's living check to check. She's got 3 kids. She's working on it, but she's the most wonderful volunteer you have. Do not ask her for money, right? You don't have the 3 out of the 3. Use her gift as her time and as her passing out your business card. So there's ways to, right, take care of it. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't just send an email to Mr. Gates, but chances are he's not going to read it. But if you want to, you can go right ahead. So those 3 things have to be there in order to ask for a gift and to sustain giving. Those 3 things have to be there every time. Otherwise, they just don't work together. And sometimes we're fooled by capacity. Let's talk about that. People in the Northwest are subtle people. There's a lot of millionaires walking around in REI gear that you would never know have $5 million in their 401k. And so it's a little different in Beverly Hills, maybe even a little different in Bellevue, maybe, you know, the matching running outfits and all. And I make fun of that, but I'm from California, so I make fun of my own people. But they're silly sometimes. But we're not tenacious that way or ostentatious that way, right? We don't. Some people will tell you, for example, when they go on European vacations all the time, but most people won't tell you. So you don't really know unless you know them. And then you know there's capacity. If we're dripping with jewelry, that's an obvious of capacity, or they're gone to the summer home 3 months out of the year, you have capacity. But a lot of times you won't know. So again, art and science with fundraising. So you decide, you investigate them. You do donor research. Do they give to other organizations, and what do they give? You find out if there are friends of that donor, and you ask them. Not right out, like, how much you think you could give me, but you say things like, does he vacation often? Does he or she, are they pretty socially connected? Do they have, you think discretionary income, they might be able to make a donation to us? I mean, do not be afraid to ask already friends of yours, not a stranger, but somebody who's already friends with yours, what do you think I should? Because one of the things fundraisers do very well is to sit in a room and strategize what is the best amount of the gift. And the due diligence is, have you done your research? Who else do they give to? Who do they know? Have you talked to them? They don't have any history with you, but they might have history with the American Heart Association or their church. I mean, there are people that you know, so you use your network to kind of figure that out. Most of the time, you hit the range pretty well. Sometimes there's outliers, and we don't know what they are until we do it. So if we do our homework, we hit about 95% of the time. You know, some people are shocked. we're going to talk about a story I told last time because there's new people here, but sometimes we miss the mark, but we learn. Because then you learn. And then there's a relationship. Now you're like, oh, I just messed up. I asked you for, or they'll say, are you out of your mind? I can't give you $5,000. And then another person will say, well, could I have 5 years to pay on that and make it $1,000 a year? Right? So you can give and take on capacity. It's the gray area of affinity and relationship, but you can find out. It just takes donor research a bit. That's what it takes. In family foundations, we have 990s, right, on tax returns, where we can look and see what they've given. But donors don't have those. They don't share their tax returns with us. So we have to do a little bit different way, right? Okay. As we move on to identify, assess, and develop your donor base, this is one of my favorite tools, and I will share with you that this tool is, I wish they would have had this tool when I was growing up. But it's just come around. It's been around since the 70s, but a lot of folks never used it, which is kind of funny. We're still good? Okay. So we're going to look at this right here. Is that where we are, my friend? Moves management? It's in another slide. Okay. Yes, it is. So we're going to go to moves management now. And here's what we have. If you look up under moves management, best practices of fundraising, right, that first paragraph, if we take each of these 5 steps that are listed here, in order, the relationship unfolds organically and everyone benefits. And we're going to talk about why that's so. So how about if we have a volunteer? Can you read these, or is the print too small? Can somebody read, Alan, can you read number 1 for me, identify? Oh, she's going to bring you the mic. That'd be good. I'm sorry, Angela. I should have picked someone on that side.
You're
So you don't have
excited.
to walk all the way around, but
There you go, Alan. They got the big handout too.
read number 1 for me, for us.
Identify. During this phase, we identify our most likely prospects, those closest to the organization, and learn enough about them to understand their relationship to the mission.
That's right. So that's what we're first going to do, is identify that. Exactly. All right, hand the mic over to Cindy. And what's number 2? Information.
Here we clarify for the prospects what issue or opportunity needs attention, what can be done about it, and what will be different if we address it, and what's in it for them or the community.
Right. So that means, what is the need, right, that the organization has, and what is the solution the organization is offering? That's the information. We're going to talk a little bit about that a little later. All right, so we have identified who we want to talk to. We have information that we're going to give that person. And then what's number 3, John? Interest.
Interest. In this stage, we pay close attention to see if the prospect is participating in the conversation. Are they calling the office with questions, responding to our online survey, sticking around after a program or event? Indication that they are curious about our work.
How about that? So you've identified the donor, you're going to give them information, and now they're like coming to your events. Or maybe they respond to an email. Or, as John said, they answer a survey. So there's something they're sparking that says, I might be interested in you. I feel some affinity, but I don't know what it is yet. All right, and then what happens, Sarah?
Involvement. At this point, those who are interested usually get physically or emotionally involved, making an in-kind gift of goods or services, volunteering in some small way, attending something, or participating in a task force or focus group.
Okay, so they are in, right? They came to a performance. They sent you a Christmas card with the check. Mimi, I don't know what they would do with you, but for some reason they want to serve on one of your committees. They're not a donor yet, but they go, if you ever need anybody on your team, look me up because I might be interested, right? So now we are involved as a donor. We're not a donor yet. We're just a prospect. And then finally, number 5, Mimi?
Invest.
I love this part.
At this stage, they've indicated interest and they've gotten involved. It's time to offer the prospect an opportunity to contribute.
There we go. That's it. Thank you, Angela. So let's look at the upper right-hand corner where this diagram shows. And here's how moves management works. I have seen this work for 15, 20 years. And here's what happens. And by the way, a donor can go through this circle in 6 months, a year and a half. There's usually right around that time frame. So here, there's the identification, right? You with me? Starts at identification on the top, about 11 o'clock. Is that 11? Yeah. Identification, going around. So we've identified a donor somehow. Someone's referred to us. It's a lapsed donor. All that list that we had before. Someone brought them to us. Identification, referred. And now we're going to give them information. Well, the reason you came to the Arts Foundation, well, tell me what's going on with them. Oh, my goodness. It's amazing what we can do for these kids. These kids have no access to music. And so what we're trying to do here at Arts Foundation is to bring music to these kids in a time and an access equity way that can be helpful to them. Oh, that's wonderful. So there's a need, there's a solution they're helping with. We give them more information, all of a sudden the donor has interest, right? We talked about that. They're curious, and then they go to involvement. Now they're engaged. They're engaged somehow. They're at an event. They're talking to you. They maybe go out to lunch with you. They're physically involved with you now. And then what happens? And then they're ready to invest. They've been around. They see what you do. They're still excited. And then you know it's time for a gift approach. You have a lot of information in your mind. Then what happens? We don't keep asking them for a gift every year at this time. You notice the circle doesn't stop at investment. It then goes on to more information. Why would someone give a gift when they don't have more information of what your need might be? Right? People don't do that. They do it in an annual appeal. This is for major giving. An annual appeal, oh, there's my audio book. I'm going to give to them every Christmas, right? There's no question about it. But what if audio wanted $500? Or $1,000, whatever a major gift. What is a major gift for you? 500?
5,000.
5,000. All right. To get 5,000, this person's not going to give 5,000 without any more information. I'm not going to do that. So they need more information. Oh, by the way, we have had a hurricane in the southern part of the United States. We can't get to some of those churches. I'm wondering if you might help us with that, or whatever that might be. So now there's more information going around the circle. Now there's a refresh interest on something else, still in your organization, but still a critical need that you're resolving. And then they go, I like it at all. Do you need any volunteer work at all? Going down to the south and helping with the churches? No, not really. But I can be on a committee to kind of help you work through that, right? Absolutely you can. And then all of a sudden we go to more money or more investment. If you take any of these out, a donor is just an annual donor. It's just repeat, repeat, repeat. This allows you to continue to educate your donor and to move the donor in their donor time. That's a real thing, by the way, donor time. It's not our time. Our time would be, I ask you for a gift, you give it to me right now. Thank you very much. A donor time's like, well, wait just a minute. I want more information. I want to be involved with you. They don't say that to you, to your ears, out of their lips, but this is what they're thinking. They're starting to be curious. I might want to find out. If Alan calls me for coffee, I'm kind of curious about that trombone player in the symphony. That solo was incredible. I want to know about him, right? This is how people get involved. And you can see at the bottom, organizations that spend more energy and resources on building relationships, right? That's what we're talking about tonight, than asking for money, ultimately make more money, and their donors stay longer and share their excitement with others. It seems so simple, but once we get a donor, we immediately think, I gotta go back, I gotta go back, I gotta go back. You've gotta go back to build a bigger relationship. If you can remember that, when someone gives you a gift, like anybody would give you a gift, you don't go, I want another one, unless you're 4. My nephew does that a little bit. Like, are you coming again for a gift? No, we're just having dinner right now. But you have to have a reason to give again. And that's where organizations struggle the most. Well, if they gave to me once, why can't they give to me again? And that mentality just is not sustainable. And if you think of yourself as a donor, that you don't just want to be an ATM machine. You want to know that you have impact, that you care. And a lot of times, the more information is about impact, right? Let me tell you what your gift did last time. Incredible. And now let me tell you what this new gift, this new need that we have, will have an impact on X. on these older people that need help, or these people who don't have medical issues that need more support, whatever it is, right? More books, more performances, whatever it might be, more education. Let me make sure I didn't forget anything. I want to show you everything I know. Yeah. I told a story last week, and so I'll make it really short for those of you that are new tonight. When I was a young pup at Multicare, just really didn't know what I was doing. I was doing the best I could, but I didn't have much experience, right? About 3 years at United Way. And so I built relationships pretty quickly, and after about a year with this particular family, they were in their 80s, they were very wealthy, Tacomans, and they'd given us a lot of money. And my supervisor said to me, I know they love you, and I think you need to ask them for $1 million. I said, are you out of your mind? $1 million? What am I don't even know for what? Well, it doesn't matter, they'll give you money. I want you to take them to lunch. We're not meeting our goals like we should, or like we could. That wasn't my fault, but okay. And so I'd like you to go out and ask them for $1 million. And I was so young and so impressionable by a superior telling me this is what I needed to do. I said, don't have that, but I had to learn. And so I asked them to lunch, and they were happy to see me. And during the lunch, I asked them, now, she did her due diligence, right? She knew that the donor had given. She knew that we had a relationship, and she knew they didn't care much for her, which was okay with me too, but they liked me, and I loved them. Because you remember, I love older people, so they were in their 80s, so I just thought they were just lovely people. And we'd had many, many conversations together. And at the lunch, I said, I'm wondering if you would consider giving Multicare $1 million gift. And the woman's response was this, oh! I thought, oh my Lord, I have made the biggest mistake of my life. My face went bright red. I couldn't even speak. I wanted to get under the table. I was so embarrassed. And the husband looked at me and went, we're not going to do that, Linda Kay. And I said, okay, sir. Yeah. I would not blame them if they'd never talked to me again. They did talk to me again. 7 years later, we built a relationship. She passed away. I did the eulogy at her funeral. And then I attended his funeral 2 years later. But what didn't I do? I had identified the donor, no problem, right? I didn't have any information. I just asked them for money. Why? Because they had the capacity. It was a Mr. Gates thing, even though I had a donor relationship with them. So I didn't even follow the first circle on the first gift. I do now, mind you, and I've raised a lot of money since then. So even in the first time you ask a donor for a gift, it starts. Just because you identify the donor, just because you identify they have affinity, capacity in a relationship, so you're feeling 3 out of 3, I got the trifecta, without information about your organization and why you need their money and what the impact will be, we have no relationship. You have no business in the moves management if you can't even get past the information part, right? And this is where organizations make trouble. They think once a donor, you're in, and the donor loves you, you should go in again. But that's not how donors work. And they don't work on our time frame either. So they don't do it as quickly. Some donors, 6 months, no problem. Again and again and again. Some donors a year. The going saying for best practices is you should have an account portfolio of donors for about a year. And if they don't give you a new gift in a year, you should pull those donors outside and put new donors in, donor prospects. Not everybody fits the year. Most people do. If they're going to give to you, they're going to give you to within a year time frame. That's a long time, a year. But some take a little bit longer because life happens. People get sick, they lose their jobs. Don't give up on me, Linda, I'm still here, okay. Maybe I keep them because I love them, and I'm going to cultivate them a little bit different than I do everybody else, because life is like that, right? And you want to be one of those people that understands life and is empathetic and sympathetic. But if you're worth your weight in Friskies and you believe me, this is the key, moves management. So when you think about asking for a gift from somebody, regardless of the amount, regardless of what they do for your organization, vendor, sponsor, donor, lapsed donor, board member, whoever they are, remember, you cannot think of them as an ATM machine, ever. You have to give them more information. You have to see that they're interested in that information. Then they've kind of be a little more reactive with you about this need or in some other way, and then it's time. But it's not time before that. I don't want you to ever be embarrassed like I was. It was awful. It was just awful. I was embarrassed for myself. And it's probably the reason that my organization created this flyer. It looks like a flyer in the Boards on Fire book, which I did not bring today, but they talk about this, and we just doctored up a little from my experience about what's most important. So I'm happy for you to take that if you like. All right, so the second part of that, right? The second part, we'll get through that really quickly. Typical stewardship. This is how you define it. Like when we talked about how much stewardship we have or what the stewardship is we do, this is really, and the second one, more customized stewardship. So if you don't have stewardship in your organization, it's time. That's how you treat a donor, going up to a gift, during a gift, and after a gift. It's how you steward them. It's how you treat them. Cultivation means that you're cultivating and stewarding, but you're cultivating toward a gift, right? That's what moves management is. This is cultivating. Once a person's given a gift, you may be cultivating them for the next gift, but you are far and away stewarding them. You could say synonymously follow up, checking in, hanging out, whatever you want to say. But you, in your donor base or in your Excel spreadsheet, if you don't have a donor-based software yet, when did I see them? What did I do with them? Yeah.
I have one donor who belongs to 2 groups.
Okay.
Should I only focus on her for one group?
You mean the two, because multiple organizations, you mean when you say groups? Yeah. No. I would keep her in both because the information, what they do two different things, these organizations?
She went to one group's, she went to both groups' events.
Uh-huh.
I know what she gave at one group.
Yeah.
She didn't give as much to the other group.
Okay. It's fun to be that person, is it, when you kind of know? Yeah. There's no reason why she can't be in both. Okay. Yeah, they're just different causes. But if she gave to both, it means something to her. So she's got affinity, she's got capacity. What she needs is a relationship. And she should have one for both of them, for each one of them.
I think I'm the relationship.
Well, you go, girl. You can talk about both. Okay. There's no reason. I mean, even though, and when I had donors, individual donors, and what's funny is they follow you whether you work there or not. They just do. It's like being a doctor. They always want to ask you the doctor questions. It's like that with the fundraisers. What do you think about? I'm like, okay. I think that's a good idea if you're going to give them money. They will, donors, when I had donors, individual donors, we talked about other organizations all the time, right? And they'd ask me questions if I knew about them. Did I think they were valid, or did I understand them? Or who would you tell me to talk to? Or, so there's no harm in that at all, especially because you represent both. You're not playing them against each other. You're just.
I thought it would, oh, here she comes again. Now she's going to hit me for the other one.
Well, what you want her to say is, oh, I wonder what new information she's bringing me. Not that she's hitting me up again. Yeah. So when you start, this kind of moves management with the donor, then they don't think that. Okay. What do you got? And we say this too all the time in the business. We say, I just want to update you. I just want to update you to what's new. Say that every time. People that go, no, I don't want any updating. It means they don't care. But if they're a previous donor or lapsed donor, they probably do care. And say, and you have to be enthusiastic about it. Right? I'm excited to let you know what's going on. There's some exciting stuff going on. Like at Habitat for Humanity, never had a campaign before. And there's some people that she hasn't talked to in a long time. We don't do a gift approach right up. We meet for coffee and they'll go, well, what's new? And then she tells them, and then they want to get involved. Usually, right? Usually. So you just be the person that brings the need, the solution, and the impact. Be that person. Not, gee, it's August and we ought to be getting some gifts from you. Don't be that person, right? So you have to decide what parameters and what resources you're going to put forward for stewardship. And let me just tell you right now, it's not enough. Stewarding a donor is an art. It is when you know they drink white wine versus red wine. You know their dog name. In my notes, in my phone for years, I can tell you. And I have had notes from people, or people verbally say to me, you know, Linda Kay knows always the Chardonnay is what I drink. I go, yes, I do. And I would get them the Chardonnay. And that's the same donor who gave me money every year. Right? It's those little things about stewarding. And it's not being slick or unauthentic. I had a glass of wine with her. It wasn't like I just gave it to her and said, okay, now I'm going to pat me on the head, I got you wine. It's like, well, let's have wine, let's talk. How is your brother? Is he still in the hospital? Sometimes I might not remember a person's name as I get older, but I'll tell you their story every time. And donors really appreciate it. And that is what stewarding is. On a timely basis, that you care, that you're authentic, that you're asking questions about them. I mean, if you talk to a donor, they can tell you in a heartbeat the characteristics of one organization that stewards well and one that doesn't. Really good friend of mine sent her kids to a private school, and she just took them off her annual giving because no one ever calls her. And she's a millionaire, I think times 5. And they don't call, they don't know. She's got another steward. I'd like to give it to you. And there's the other one that calls her once a quarter and knows she loves champagne. She goes, you ready? Let's go champagne. And she doesn't ask her for money. She's in their will. Now, does she also give her money? Yes, she does. And that's the case. When you steward a legacy donor, 99% of the time they will also give you annual gifts or campaign gifts of any kind, because you're stewarding them. You're shepherding them, so to speak, and taking care of them. You know what's important to them. They want to be heard. They want to know their money continuously, what they're doing. So those are the people in your moves management who you're giving new information about. It could lead to a gift, maybe not right now, but that's your job. All the information in stewarding. Yeah. And you know, I used to give and you'll see this in best practices in universities now. You know, we get degrees in fundraising. In my day, that didn't happen. But in nowadays, one of the best practices is setting out a morning or an afternoon and only donor calling and setting up donor appointments. It's that, I mean, it's a pinnacle. It's one of the best practices in fundraising, is finding time to meet with donors to steward them. Yeah. And, you know, not like no offense to this industry, but a slick car salesman's going, hey, how you doing? It's not that. It's like, come on, let's talk about your grandbabies. You watching your grandkids one day a week? Ooh, how's that going? Driving me crazy, or I love it. But this is, you truly are in the evolution of a donor and a donor's life. It can't be a one and a done. And if you're going to really be a good fundraiser, you have to be curious about people. You have to like people. You have to want to know about people's lives. And they want to tell you. And when they defer back to you, you cut it short and go right back to them. There are people that know I have a son. They know a little bit about him, because you can't say, oh, I can't talk about myself. You do a little bit, but then you easily defer back to them. And believe me, people like to talk about themselves. So it's not a really hard push. Yeah. So be that person. Be that person that somebody says, they don't use the word steward. They say, I just love the way Cindy treats me. Every time we're together, she's got something exciting to tell me about the foundation. I just love it. You want to be that person, right? Yeah. And you're that person to your friends. So you just got to be that person to donors who love what you do professionally, which is great, Okay. So are we ready for our last exercise? This is going to be so fun. Okay, so let's see, what page do you have? Words that count?
It's a separate paper.
Oh, it's a separate paper. Okay, good. So only look at the long words. It's also on the, yeah, but don't go to the second page. Just say the words that count. The words, your choice of words, they count.
Do you want to volunteer to say some words?
Yeah, so here's what I want us to do. These words, I don't know if you've ever heard them as a fundraiser, but in the olden days, I'm hoping it's olden days, but it's not really because it's still around today. These are words people talk when they talk to donors. These kind of things they say. Why don't we just, can we pass it around?
Yeah, we'll start here.
And each of you say a couple words.
Yeah, let's pass it.
Just random?
Yeah.
You owe me.
Mm-hmm.
Come in for the kill.
Mm-hmm.
Corner them.
Yeah.
Hammer them.
Yeah. Some more?
Hit them up. Twist their arm.
Mm-hmm.
Lean on your friends.
Yeah.
You owe me.
Yeah. Have you heard that before? You owe me? That's horrible. But it's true. Yeah.
suck them dry. Hook, I can't see because I don't have glasses on. Hook them. Corner them. Yeah, I know, right?
Shake them down.
Bleed them.
Yeah, shake them down. Okay, that's enough. We got the, you get the gist, right? People talk this way.
To donors?
To other fundraisers and to donors. Someone that says, you owe me? Oh, on a golf course in the olden days? Not so olden. People go, you know, buddy, you owe me. You got to help me with the concert this year. And sometimes fundraisers say, remember, you owe me. You hear, and they might mean it in jest, but words count. And you don't owe me. We're trying to figure out a solution to a problem in the community, right? So these are kind of the words that I don't even want you to use to your colleagues. These are just words that hurt, and they're just negative. One donor actually on a golf course said to my fundraiser friend, oh, here comes Barb, I'm hiding my checkbook. And she said back to him, oh, it's okay, you don't have to hide your checkbook. What I want isn't in your checkbook. It's in your savings account. Right, so she got it. Like, oh, you can't do that with me, right? That's right. So here's what I'd like you to do. Turn the page over and see the encouraging words that as fundraisers you want to use. I'll read those for you. A gift approach, visit with, share your passion, an opportunity to invest, solving a problem, right? Offering a safety net. We must fix this together, John. You got to help me with this. Invite, reach out to, educate, sharing your community's needs, solving an issue, that's always my favorite, and join me. Right, these are encouraging words, and we're right on time. We're a little over time, but in your own time frame, write down some terms that you use, that you know are encouraging, that can reinforce what we're talking about here. This isn't an exhaustive list at all, but in your organization, write some phrases. Make it a board exercise. Make it a committee exercise. Make it a staff exercise. Okay, what other encouraging words do we use in our organization where if we said to a donor, these are encouraging words about them joining us to be a donor? It's a good exercise. It's on Boards on Fire as well. But it's one of my favorites because we don't realize, and we know this from our teachings even as children, that words count and words can hurt. And these other words, these are negative words. These are actually violent kind of physical words, but these are really encouraging. These lift people up, right? So do that if you can. Questions on anything I've talked about or from the evening that you'd like to ask me? I know we're right at that time. I know you're all going to be fabulous fundraisers, I can just tell, or already are, or working on it.
I guess it's just that it's a lot of work for volunteers to spend time out.
It is.
Relationships.
It is. But I'll tell you what, one of the most beautiful moments I think I ever had as an executive director is when the chair of the board and I were working together. I knew he was good, right? I knew like you, I knew he cared. I know he wanted us to do well. And we were talking to a donor, not on a gift approach, but just cultivating. It was a coffee. And he was so passionate about it that he started talking to the prospect. I did not say one word. And I just sat there in awe of him that he could say even better than I, and they paid me to do it. And he was so beautiful that that person became a donor of six-figure gifts. Wow. Because my chair, who didn't get any money, but believed in it so, kind of, usually the staff person brings along the volunteer. Well, in this case, the volunteer brought me along. And afterwards, his name is Kent Roberts. And I said to Kent, you are the most amazing volunteer I've ever seen. He goes, yeah, stick with me, kid, you can learn something. Okay, I will. And to this day, I breakfast with him once a quarter.
So great.
Just incredible. Volunteers are like Christmas gifts to me, birthday gifts to an organization, because we don't have the bandwidth to do it all ourselves for whatever reason, and that a person would take their time and volunteer it. And I mean not just shake a hand and kiss babies. I mean really do what we're talking about tonight, stewarding and cultivating and taking the extra step and making an extra call. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I hope organizations will understand that and be grateful for it. And I wish organizations that didn't ask for volunteers to help realize what they're missing, that they don't. Because it is a beautiful, symbiotic, I think, relationship. And I wouldn't be the fundraiser I am today without volunteers like you. I just would not be. They've helped me through the years. Yeah, yeah. Organizations don't exist without board of directors, which are volunteers, and they don't exist without fundraising committees or event committees. They don't exist. So they're not as good. So I appreciate you, Cindy, a lot. Other questions or comments? Now, aren't you glad you came? Yeah.
So we will have a couple follow-up sessions where we'll be doing editing of your grants or your impact statements. We heard a preference for Zoom, so we don't have to sit in traffic with the rain and who knows what's coming in the fall. So we're happy to do that. If you have, there's a email address up there if you have some thoughts. I'm a marinator. I act like I talk a lot, but then I think and I'm like, oh, I should have said that. So if you have questions or thoughts about timing or when you'd like to host that, maybe you went over the lunch hour or something in the evening, we can be online and have several, grant writers. If you want to have Linda Kay, we can probably charm her to give some feedback on your impact statements. And, as we are living day to day, the world is changing, right before our eyes, and we do not know what is ahead of us. And so the way to kind of steady your nonprofit or your small business is really, really to get your story and your impact statement down. Your why, your who, what, where, why, and when, right? And I feel like having that to tell people like why it matters is going to give people hope. And in these times when people feel like they're swirling, they need to know that you are the life raft and they can get in. And so just keep that in mind, because that people tend to galvanize to the things that are good when they're feeling stressed or uncertain. So you might be surprised of how much funding you can get or grants you can get, because people are looking for those ways they can do good. So Linda Kay might have lots of wisdom there, but I've seen a lot of rallying around good causes and local causes. So keep the hope, get the impact statement down. We're here to help and support you, and hopefully you will share with us one day of how this helped you be hopefully more successful, right? So thank you for being here.
Yeah, appreciate you. Yeah, appreciate you.